Now, Iran is facing massive protests, with demonstrators demanding change and authorities responding with deadly force and an internet blackout. U.S. President Donald Trump has once again warned of possible military strikes, while Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has vowed that the Islamic Republic will not back down. For 13 straight days, Iranians have taken to the streets. In Tehran, cars and buildings were set ablaze. Crowds shouted slogans, including "Long live the Shah," while in Bandar Abbas, demonstrators overturned a police vehicle. In Tehran's Sadatabad district, people were seen banging pots and chanting slogans against Khamenei. Cars honked in support as crowds gathered. Similar scenes played out in Mashhad, Tabriz, and the holy city of Qom. Human rights groups say at least 65 protesters, including 9 children, have been killed by security forces, with hundreds more injured. As the unrest sweeps the country, social media videos surfaced earlier showing the extent of damage. In Tehran, protesters set fire to a police kiosk as crowds gathered in defiance. And as the demonstrators hoisted a banner, their anger visible in the flames. And in Karaj, videos showed people running as shots rang out in the night. Amnesty International condemned the blanket internet shutdown, accusing authorities of trying to hide grave human rights violations. Internet Monitor NetBlocks confirmed a nationwide shutdown over the past 24 hours, saying it masks regime violence and violates the rights of Iranians. As protests in Iran rage, U.S. President Donald Trump issued another warning to Iran's government, cautioning against the killing of protesters. He said that if authorities resort to violence, the United States will respond by hitting Iran very hard where it hurts.
So Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible just a few weeks ago. We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it means hitting them very, very hard where it hurts.
But Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, struck a defiant tone in a televised speech, dismissing protesters as vandals. He accused President Trump of having hands stained with the blood of more than 1,000 Iranians, referencing last year's war with Israel, backed by U.S. strikes.
U.S. President Donald Trump's hands are stained with the blood of more than 1,000 Iranians. Everyone knows the Islamic Republic came to power with the blood of hundreds of thousands of honorable people. It will not back down in the face of saboteurs.
Exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has urged U.S. President Donald Trump to urgently intervene as protests rage in Iran. He cited internet blackouts and threats of force, calling on Iranians to overwhelm security forces against the regime. Meanwhile, Iranian Nobel Peace Laureate Shirin Ebadi has warned that security forces may be preparing a massacre under the cover of nationwide communications blackout. She said the internet shutdown was not a technical failure, but a deliberate tactic to conceal abuses. All right, to discuss more, we're now being joined by retired Colonel David B. Roches from Washington, D.C. He's a professor at the Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University. Thank you so much for joining on the broadcast. Always a pleasure talking to you. The situation looks absolutely devastating in Iran, and because of the internet blackout, we cannot really get news as fast as we would like to. But considering the fact that the situation looks so terrible, how do you address Trump's intervention? Can he do that? And can he do that like he did in Venezuela? But can he actually intervene in another country's domestic issue there?
Well, he can, but I don't think he'll need to. It looks as though the regime is falling of its own weight. I mean, the foreign minister went to Lebanon, which is not unusual in itself, but he took his family with him, which is. There's a report in the French press that the Speaker of the Parliament has applied for French visas for his family to move to Paris. And there are reports that the supreme leader has been moved to a compound outside of Tehran in order to insulate him from the violence here. The United States doesn't really have as robust a presence in that region as we had. So there's no carriers or even large helicopter carriers in the region. All of our aircraft carriers are elsewhere. I think that when President Trump says the United States will take action, his preferred mode is to use the economic element of power. I think he's referring to stepped up seizures of shadow tankers transporting Iranian oil and enhanced sanctions against the family members of the regime who generally take the money from the Iranian government and then deposit it and live lifestyles in the West.
And Exec Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has also urged U.S. President Donald Trump to intervene. Of course, we do see that he would need support, but would Trump support him in what might be a regime change?
I don't think so. I think that he's kind of yesterday's, well, he's not yesterday's man. He's the man of 3 decades ago. He hasn't lived in Iran since he was a very, very young man. And I think that it's, Iranians clearly want to get rid of the Revolutionary Guard cleric regime and the corruption and incompetence that's brought with it. That doesn't mean they want to return to the monarchy. And one of the reasons why the regime has been able to last so long is because the monarchy has persisted in pushing themselves forward as the only credible alternative to Iran. Then you're just you're basically just transferring one level of corruption or one facade of corruption for another. I think that he has a role to play as one of many in a future Iran, but the idea that he's the guy who can unite Iran, I think, is mistaken and actually plays into the Revolutionary Guard regime propaganda.
Right, and according to the Amnesty International, they have, of course, condemned the blanket internet shutdown. How do you analyze this? Do you think there's a possibility of a rising defiance in Iranian, and there is a possibility of regime change? We cannot know because of this internet blackout. But does that show that they have control over, or does that show that they do not? The Iranian, I'm talking about the government there, or that they do not have power.
I think what it shows is that they're afraid of losing power. Historically, they shut down the media when they want to go in and kill the people who are opposing them. The other steps they do, which has been reported back in 2008, 2009, they brought in Lebanese Hezbollah militiamen to fire on Iranian citizens because they were worried about the reliability of their own troops. There have been reports that now they've brought in Iraqi militiamen, and there are even some reports that haven't been confirmed that Belarusian Ministry of the Interior riot police have been deployed. There's also been reports from sources within Iran that as many as 217 people with bullet wounds have presented just at Tehran hospitals. Just in one city. So that would seem to indicate, and I don't know how credible these reports are, but taken in mass, it would seem to indicate that the shutdown is in order to do their dirty work outside of the eyes of the world and to control the narrative.
And Khamenei, he has, of course, lashed out at Trump, and he's also, insisted that the Islamic Republic will not back down. How do you analyze his power structure? How capable is he, and how valid could we take his warning?
He's really increasingly a figurehead. What you've seen since 2009 is sort of a slow motion military coup by the Revolutionary Guard. They've increased their role in government, and they've increased their role in the Iranian economy to the point where they control maybe 45% of the Iranian economy. And that's one of the factors that's fueling these protests, because quite frankly, when you have corrupt military officials running a country, the country doesn't run well. So, the Khamenei was talking about evacuating Tehran because they can't get the water there. That is almost entirely due to regime corruption and incompetence. So I think that Khamenei is important, but he's actually Iran is increasingly ruled by a cabal of senior clerics, the country's president, and Revolutionary Guard army officers. It's sort of a council of, or a tribunal that runs it, and I think that that's where the real power is. If Khamenei does leave the country, it's possible that the regime will the regime will be greatly weakened, but it will not fall just with the absence of Khamenei.
All right. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how this goes and hope for any positive outcome, though. But thank you so much for joining us on Barcast. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.